You are listening to the Centropic Oracle, an audiobook podcast of science fiction and fantasy short stories that make you think and feel. Together, We Scream Louder, by Amanda Vincent. The simmer of warnings flared to a boil. Panic clawed its way to her throat, gagging her with the taste of scorched death, and her mouth fell open in a scream. A violent wind whipped through her hair, rising with her cries. Her dry lips cracked, and slivers of shrieks broke off and drowned in the freshly bloodied silt. The house before her stayed dark and silent. Nora! Cool fingers grasped her bare shoulders and pulled her from the road. The wind died, and her hair fell in limp strings across her face. "What are you doing? I woke up and you were gone. I've been looking everywhere." "I had to tell her." Nora pulled away, crossing her arms over her chest. He shouldn't have stopped her. This was important. "Tell who what? Are you hurt? What's going on?" Why did Spence always ask such stupid questions? And why didn't she ever know the answer to them? She followed his eyes, big brown orbs of confusion and concern as they swept over her. Her, 3 blocks away from home in the middle of Lower Bridge Drive, wearing nothing but a Nirvana tee that barely covered her polka dot panties. Lights were coming on all over the neighborhood, and bleary eyes peeked through bent window blinds. Except the house in front of her. "Are you okay?" Spence pulled her close, brushing damp strands of hair from her face. "I wanted to warn her." Nora fell against Spence's chest. His heartbeat was so fast, it wasn't healthy. "Warn who, honey?" His voice was low and crooning, like he was talking to a very small, very confused child. Feeling like a very small, very confused child, Nora whispered, "I don't know." Spence figured she was sleepwalking. Losing Jenny had been hard for all of them, but really she'd been Nora's best friend. Stress and grief can manifest itself in many ways. Maybe Nora should talk to somebody. Nora dropped a bottle of ibuprofen, a bottle of bubble bath, and a bottle of wine on the counter. The self-care triumvirate. "Where's Rochelle?" she asked, with a quick glance around the store. Buying stuff just wasn't the same without the sweet Mrs. Claus-like lady kindly inquiring, "What can I do you for?" "Oh." The cashier let out a shuddery breath, and for the first time, Nora noticed the girl's red-rimmed eyes. "What happened?" Nora whispered, but she knew. The ice that had engulfed her stomach told her. "She's gone." The girl, Kelly, her name tag said Kelly, sniffled. "Heart attack." "They couldn't help her?" "Rochelle never even called 911. Thought she could tough it out, I guess. You know how she is. I mean. Nora nodded. Too bad Rochelle hadn't heard the warning. "They never hear me." The words spoke themselves, in a voice razor-sharp and husky. A voice that wasn't hers. Kelly's eyebrows rose, disappearing into blonde bangs. What? Why had she said that? Nora meant to apologize for being weird, but instead asked, "Do you know where she lived?" Kelly's eyebrows went down, furrowing in uncomfortable concern. "Over on Lower Bridge? But you don't need to go over there or anything. She lived alone." The floor tipped, and Kelly's baby face wavered in front of her. Nora's breath came in short, frigid bursts that sliced her throat, then froze the air in tiny gray clouds. "Are you okay, ma'am?" "I don't know." Nora thought about talking to Spence, telling him that when he'd found her last night, she'd been screaming at a dead lady's house, and did he think it meant anything? But she knew what he'd say. that she should see somebody, forgetting that she was already seeing somebody. Dr. Allison was a very good grief counselor who worked hard for her $75 an hour. You couldn't help but admire her determination to convince Nora it wasn't her fault Jenny had driven home drunk and smashed her pretty face and brilliant brain to bits. Even though it was undoubtedly Nora's party that had killed her, Nora's Captain Morgan's sloshing around in her belly and clouding her brain. Nora's door she walked out of before hopping into her car, all while Nora was too busy getting frisky with Spence to notice. Yeah, no point in bringing it up. She grabbed the wine and the bubble bath and ran for the tub. Her feet were shreds of skin, clinging to tiny bird bones, oozing blood in moonlit streams on the asphalt. Her stomach roiled, burning her insides with the blistering of an imminent death, and her throat begged to scream. Thick waves of panic choked her, and she fell to her knees and retched, coughing up pain, fear, and a need to run. A low moan seeped between her lips, and she rose to her mangled feet. The crack of her jaw rang in her ear like a muffled shot. She threw back her head and howled at the house before her, a keening cry that rattled the windows. Hear me. Run. Live. Red and blue lights flashed somewhere beyond her eyelids, but Nora refused to open them and see. She squinched her eyes closed harder, so hard it made her forehead ache, distracting her from the razor-sharp rawness of her throat. But there was no shutting her ears. "Miss?" A hand timidly tapped her arm. She'd have to open her eyes sometime. Might as well be now. A willowy, blue-clad policeman with the barest excuse for a mustache peered down at her. "Are you all right? Did he hurt you too?" "Too?" The word pierced her heart and punctured her hopes. "He hurt her?" "She's..." Deputy McBabyface hesitated, racking his brain for the kindest euphemism. "She's gone." Then it all went black. "That was humiliating! They thought you were the homewrecker in a domestic dispute!" Spence paced the living room, while Nora watched from the couch sidelines and nursed her headache with an ice pack and a dropper of CBD oil. Ibuprofen had ceased to work its magic, and Tylenol PM, NyQuil, and Unisim had all been equally disappointing. "Because I was in my underwear?" "That definitely didn't help, but mostly because you were there, outside their house, screaming bloody murder." "Was it a bloody murder?" Nora shot to her feet. Spence guided her back to the couch. "Don't worry about that." "Don't worry about it? You are literally stomping around the room shouting at me about it." "I'm not shouting." "Your tone was." And her skull was, and her heart was, and her guts were. Every last cell in her spindly-ass body was screaming. "You're being ridiculous." "Did she die?" The words stuck in her throat, bubbling up like thick sludge. "Is she dead?" Spence dropped into his lazy boy and buried his head in his hands. "Yes, but you don't even know her. Why do you care?" Failure split Nora in two, and she screamed. The lights flickered as Spence's leather couch ripped, hemorrhaging white fluff through gaping threads. Between flashes of quaking light bulbs, she saw herself in the mirror over the fireless fireplace. Flash on, Nora's own terrified face, her small pink mouth pulled back over bone-white teeth in a soul scream that barely held the misery nausea at bay. Flash off, the face of a girl she didn't know, pale, with a sickly glow and a burst of black, spidery veins creeping from temples to sunken cheeks, gray lips pulled back over sharpened teeth, and a scream that was her only release. Flash on, flash off. Flash on, flash off. Spence's sweaty hand clamped down over her mouth. Nora stifled the urge to bite it, doing her best to swallow the cries as he guided her to the couch. She rested her head against his rigid chest, pressing her lips together so tightly that only whimpers could escape. He was gone when she woke up. Dirty gray dawnlight crept through the cracks in the blinds, doing its best to fill the room with its half-glow. Nora slunk through the house to her bedroom door and found it locked, Spence snoring softly on the other side. She couldn't really blame him. She was pretty scary. "These look great." Smiling angelically, Spence drizzled syrup in precise lines across the top of her apology pancakes. She'd considered making them heart-shaped, as in, "I'm sorry, I love you, I promise I'm not scary," but that seemed desperate. Instead, she'd gone with Pac-Man. "I think it's time we saw my priest." But maybe she should have gone with hearts. Spence was a terrible Catholic. He only saw his priest when somebody in his family died or got. Nobody died. Not of his, anyway. So that could only mean marriage. The topic they'd been skirting for years, with nary a mention of the clergy. "Yeah?" Nora nibbled daintily on a tiny, feminine bite of pancake. She hadn't really expected this. She'd expected him to run, fast and far, not man up and commit. This show of support through her troubled, inexplicable times had her borderline sobbing in the syrup. "Yes," he said, carving Pac-Man into small, digestible bites. "I did some reading last night, and I think you may be possessed." "What?" Nora jumped to her feet. Her chair shot out behind her and clattered against the tile. Rattled by the noise, she blurted out her stupid, stupid thoughts. "I thought you were going to propose!" "Oh." Beautiful Spence cleared his throat and looked embarrassed. Embarrassed for her. He gave her what he thought was a boyishly charming smile. "I was going to propose an exorcism." "Are you kidding me?" "Or at least an exam." "An exam? What is he going to do, have me pee on a stick? Then be all like, 'Sorry, ma'am, we've got some very bad news. You see this plus sign right here? It means you've got demons inside you.'" Nora paced the room, shaking her head and muttering. "An exam? Seriously?" "Nora, I'm telling you, I did a lot of reading. All I'm saying is—" "What?" Nora whirled on him, daring him to continue. "I'm trying to tell you—" "So tell me!" "You're vulnerable." Spence stilled her pacing, resting his hands on her shoulders. "After what you went through with Jenny, well, I read that death and depression can leave you susceptible to attacks. And you've got to admit, you fit the profile. And no offense, but we both know that what we saw in the mirror last night wasn't human." Nora bit her cheek so hard the blood ran, then decided to say what she had to say anyway. "You think I'm weak? That anyone or anything can control me? But I'm not weak, I'm sad." She grabbed his hands and threw them from her shoulders. "It's not the same." She turned, grabbed the last pancake for the road, and walked out. Once you've stormed out, it's kind of hard to storm back in, especially when it's Saturday and Spence doesn't have a very important workplace to go to. So Nora kept walking, on sidewalks, in bike lanes, on grassy patches that were way too close to the road. Eventually, she came to a park, which was a very good thing because she was in desperate need of a place to sit. Today's trek hadn't done her shredded feet any favors, and she just about kissed the lone bench overlooking the shady footpath. The bench's beautifully impractical wrought iron dug into her back and burned through her jeans, but she was thrilled to be sitting. For the first time today, she felt right. Lulled by the sun's warmth trickling through the canopy of ancient oaks, her eyes drifted closed. But not for long. She was screaming. Again. Pain, heat, danger, noise. This time in broad daylight, surrounded by strangers with no Spence to hold her up. Shit. But then her mouth snapped shut, and a deep satisfaction rolled over her. Pride, almost. "It's okay. The baby's fine." A wrinkled woman in a cat sweater patted her arm. A pot-bellied man in a jogging suit patted her other arm. "That sure was something. How'd you know that branch was gonna fall? I heard you holler before I even heard the crack." Branch? Nora's bleary eyes took in the scene as her brain caught up. A live oak limb, large enough to be a tree itself, lay splayed across the path. On one side, an edge so jagged it'd scare vampires. On the other, a glossy riot of deep green leaves, soon to be dust. Its brown bark skin was cracked and broken, revealing the lighter ringed meat within. A step behind lay a tipped stroller, its back wheels still spinning. A step behind that, a young woman with scrunchied blonde hair and dark circled blue eyes cradled a wriggling, pink-blanketed form to her chest. With shaking hands, she rubbed her daughter's back in small circles, shushing her softly. The shushing was pretty soothing, as were the goodbye pats from her new geriatric friends. Nora stood rooted in place while both she and the baby were calmed. In a swoop of gymnastic mommery, the woman righted the stroller one-handed and gently strapped the sleeping baby in before wheeling over. "I'm Liz." She introduced herself softly before bursting out loudly, "You scared me half to death!" "I am so sorry," Nora said, eyes prickling. "Are you kidding me? If you hadn't screamed, I never would have stopped." Liz took a deep, shuddery breath. "Jenny would have been crushed for sure." "Her name's Jenny?" The baby had little floofs of red hair popping up all over her head. The same color as Nora's Jenny. "Mm-hmm," she said, gazing lovingly down at her little wonder. "And if there's anything I can ever do for you, girl, you just let me know." Nora thought it over, and her feet shouted up at her. "I could use a ride home." Nora expected to spend the ride planning what she would say to Spence. This time, she was really going to give him the what for. That whole marriage exorcism switcheroo was too much, even for her, the cool girlfriend. And if he still, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, hadn't bothered to clean up the breakfast dishes, well, then he was really going to be sorry. Oh, and she was also going to tell him she didn't want to be exorcised, that she didn't need to be exorcised, that she'd saved a Jenny today. That if she was possessed, it was probably by a superpower like venom, so he could just deal with it. She never got the chance to fully plan out her speech, though. She'd spent the whole ride home talking to Liz about why Fiona Apple was the most relatable, soul-touching musical genius of all time, and thank goodness she'd finally put out a new album, and could they replay Fetch the Bolt Cutters one more time? As it turned out, that was probably the best use of her time, because Spence's car was not in the driveway when they pulled up. Abandonment oozed from the doors and windows of the house, and the vibe of the whole house was utterly devoid of man. Nora sighed. At least she hadn't wasted good girl time rehearsing a farewell monologue for an audience of none. She exchanged numbers with her new friend crush, gave baby Jenny a kiss on her super soft new skin forehead, and walked slowly up to the house. As she walked, she planned out a new chat. One with her creepy dark mirror face. A note on the kitchen table informed Nora that Spence would be back once she'd come to her senses. Once she'd come to her senses? Nora crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash can which held no old pancakes because they were still shriveling stickily on the table, and fumed. Really, Spence, even priests aren't performing exorcism in this modern year of our Lord. Time to come to your senses, Buster. Oh, and to answer that jerk-off question you mumbled at me last night, I care that girl's dead, and I shouldn't have to explain why. The real question is, why don't you? And that was enough headspace for Spence. Nora sat on the couch, watching the sun creep down through the slats in the blinds. It yellowed, then oranged, then pinked, then completely faded away, leaving her favorite, nighttime blue-black. Nora got up and waded through the shadows until her toes bumped the fireplace. Gripping the mantel, she rose onto her toes and stared into the hollow eyes reflected in the mirror. The face that wasn't only hers glowed softly, blue tinged with black, death tinged with life. Nora froze, blinking into eyes that didn't blink back. What was she going to say again? She'd never done this before. She was never one to ask herself the deep questions. Questions like, who was she? What did she want? What did she need? She hated touchy-feely crap like that. And now, here she was, asking the chick inside her, who are you? What do you want? What do you need? Nora's questions came half in whisper, half in scream. The answers came the same way, half in whisper, half in scream. Banshee girl. Wants to be heard. Needs to save. Nora chewed her lip, mulling it over. It made sense, in a way. A female spirit whose keening heralded death was the perfect description of her new brain buddy. But Spence had told her she was vulnerable. According to him, her weakness and depression had left her wide open to demonic possession, and she had no choice but to seek treatment from his stupid medieval priest. At this point, Nora'd rather take her chances with the Banshee Mirror Girl. She vibed way more cool than scary. But what if he was right? Are you here because I'm weak, vulnerable, and sad? Sad's not vulnerable. Sad can be strong. Sad can warn. Nora leaned in, palms flat on the wooden mantel, live eyes to dead eyes. Banshee eyes that held the pain of 1,000 losses, but still raised the alarm for the living. Had she been meant to hear those alarm bells once? Had she missed the warning cries? Did you scream for me? For my Jenny? And I didn't hear? It's hard to hear, but together we scream louder. And sometimes it works. And sometimes it works. Nora mulled that over so hard she reopened last night's lip split. Salty girl blood dribbled into her mouth, and she held it under her tongue like elixir. Haunted eyes watched as she swallowed it down. With it, she swallowed the blood guilt of her Jenny's loss. It buried itself into a fleshy pit in her stomach, just south of the broken heart that dared to rejoice baby Jenny's life. She could use that sad heart to listen, to help. Then maybe she could save the next one, too. That small hope, dim as Banshee eyes, was enough. You can stay. I will stay. We'll scream louder, save more. Scream louder, save more. We hope you enjoyed Together We Scream Louder by Amanda Vincent, read by Larissa Thompson. If you'd like to learn more about the author and narrator of this story or make a donation to them, follow the story page link in the description. If you would like to submit a story for consideration or apply to be a narrator, a link to our submission guidelines is in the description. This story is copyrighted 2020 by the Centropic Oracle.